And welcome to Mary Walter Radio, the podcast. I am Mary Walter, and that right there, that handsome fella, that is Lieutenant Colonel Alan West, who's my guest co-host today. So thank you so much for joining me. It's great to have you. Thank you for
Well,
saying yes.
it's good to be with the Queen, and I think that you're the one that Joe Biden was referring to the other day in Connecticut when he said "God save the Queen." So I'm glad that Joe Biden considers you to be so important that he closed his address on it.
Oh, I've been working on my wave. And I do have my tiara. See?
There you go.
So maybe he was discussing me,
He
talking about my
was. He
tiara.
was thinking about you. Yeah.
Not the dead queen, which is good,
Yeah.
So I just like to say a big thank you to Evie for all of the graphics. He does a wonderful job, and a big hello to his son Zach, who watches every single podcast. Zach is our biggest fan. So thank you to them. Thank you to Pete, who always sends me amazing topics. I know he's here, and actually, I think he's the first one in. Pete, the first one in, yes. And he says, a belated happy Army birthday to
Hey,
Carlos from a key lime crayon lover.
there you go, Semper Fi Marine, and thank you so very much, my warrior brother.
Let's see, Queens Raiders. He might be talking about Lisa Monaco.
I don't know who that is.
I don't either. What am I
I'm
missing?
I,
Okay,
I'm
Queens
not.
Raiders. What are we missing? I have no idea of what you speak, but thank you. So maybe we'll get an answer. All right, so there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
There's some news to discuss, but I had asked you to come on a show that I did on Friday. I was in for Andrew
Mhm.
Wilkow on Breitbart, and you couldn't because you were in Washington D.C. What were you doing in Washington D.C.?
Well, actually, I was in Washington State
Oh,
at joint.
Washington State.
Yeah,
I was close.
I try to stay away from Washington D.C. But I was actually at Joint Base Lewis and McChord. It used to be Fort Lewis and McChord Air Force Base. Now they're joint bases, and I was there to watch my nephew take command of a United States Army Artillery Battalion. And it's very special to me because 21 years ago, he was in the stands watching me take command of an artillery battalion, and he was still a cadet in Army ROTC. So the legacy continues in our family. Started with my dad, as we talked about last time I was on with you, who was a World War II Army corporal, and now continues on. And so far, the only black sheep that we've had in our family was my older brother, my nephew's dad, who was a Marine, but that's okay.
That's okay. The tradition of service is strong, and that's wonderful.
Absolutely.
And we had talked about it, which is why I thought it was great that we could share that and discuss that again. So that's
Appreciate it.
fantastic.
Thank you, Mary.
Let's see. Queens Raider says Biden's number two is Lisa Monaco.
Hmm. Thought
What
that
are
was
we not
Susan
getting?
Rice. Thought it was Susan Rice. I don't know.
Yeah, or Valerie Jarrett, right?
Yeah. Well,
There's
that's Obama's number two, Valerie Jarrett.
Well, since Obama's running the show, it wouldn't
Yeah, that's true.
surprise me if
Yeah.
Larry Jarrett was there as well. So before we have quite a few things to get into. You can leave your question. You can leave your comments. If you are on YouTube, I'll bring them up onto the screen. If you're on Getter, I'll just read them. I try to get to them as many of them as I can. Of course, if you're off topic, I'm probably not going to read them out loud just for people who are listening to the podcast on Apple or Spotify without the benefit of seeing the screen. So I don't want to confuse them by jumping around and jumping back and forth because they're not watching, and that can become jarring and or annoying. Of course, if you have not done so, please subscribe to the channel. Please like the podcast. And along those lines, I would like to thank new subscribers Jay Downen, David Kennedy, Stephen King, We Play, Dana Webb, Brian Bradley, and Emily McAndrews. Thank you so much. And Sherry left a comment last week when I was last time you were on,
Hmm. Hmm.
saying, I was so excited to hear you filling for Rob Carson show. I favor your political commentary more than anything. I love your take on political issues. Well, thank you so much. It's interesting. It's so funny is you and I can have a conversation and we could disagree about something, but we're not going to become disagreeable. And I can still hear your opinion and you can still hear mine. Same thing with James. There are some people though who just think you're just like a flaming idiot and can't stand you just because you have an opinion that's different from theirs. It's really weird.
That's called fascism. When you have
True.
folks that don't believe that you are entitled to a different thought perspective. And I think it reminds me of Daniel Patrick Moynihan, the liberal senator from New York, who once said that you're entitled to your own opinions, but you're not entitled to your own facts.
Right, right, exactly. Or I saw a T-shirt. I actually got this from my co-host Vince. Remember Vince? It says my facts don't care about your feelings. There's
There you
that
go.
too, because a lot of it's emotion driven,
It
right?
is. It is. And that's what you see a lot from the progressive socialist left is that none of it makes sense whatsoever. It's all emotional based. And that's what they try to tap into. And so you even think about an organization like Black Lives Matter. It was all emotional driven. It was all ideologically driven. It didn't make any sense. And now look what has happened. They're bankrupt, spent all those tens of millions of dollars on nice, fancy houses. But what
Yep.
did they do for the Black community? Nothing whatsoever.
Nothing. And of course, there's no kind of oversight or looking into where the money went that was supposedly donated to a charity, and they're going to get away with it because we can't touch them because it's Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
So they're above the law. Okay, we have a clarification. Garland's number two, says
Oh, okay.
Lisa and Monica. I'm going to shop. I'm going to sharpen my crayons now.
No worries. Don't eat them.
Don't eat them. I always thought when you were a kid, you always thought that the crayon would taste like what it said it was, right? Because I
Yeah,
did.
orange was orange,
Right.
grape purple, yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. Red was cherry.
Yeah, and then they had the ones where they smelled. Did you have those?
No,
Where they? Oh yeah, there were crayons that smelled. My brothers got them. I think it
no,
was ahead of that curve.
you had white privilege. I didn't. Gotcha.
Yeah, there you go. That's it. That's why my brothers, but I didn't have them, but my brothers did. But
Oh,
I got to use theirs. I got to smell their crayons, and it was
there you
pretty
go.
cool. All right. So the big news today,
Yeah.
Hunter Biden is not going to jail. Shockingly, it took them 5 years to investigate, and he is now going to plead guilty to two tax misdemeanors. And
Hmm.
he struck a deal with federal prosecutors regarding that felony gun charge.
Hmm.
He's going to go into a pretrial diversion instead. And but they say that the pretrial diversion agreement will not be the subject of the plea agreement. So, if you or I had done the same, there it wouldn't have been misdemeanor tax charges. We would have been hauled up on more serious tax charges and probably would have done time. And because it's Hunter Biden and he lied on a federal firearms form, which can carry up to 5 years in prison,
Yes.
we're just going to give him a little therapy. Probably involves
Yeah.
puppies and crayons, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe he'll get a chance to go and paint some more or and sell art, what have you. But 5 years for something that would take 5 minutes or at the most, 5 hours. Because if you and I, Mary, as you just articulated, had lied on a 4473 background check, and you know that when you are filling out, going to purchase a firearm, you're filling out a 4473, any good person there at that gun store is advising you to tell the truth because you're under the subject of penalty for maybe 5 years felony offense. But why is it that all of a sudden someone like Hunter Biden can do it and nothing happens? And furthermore, I mean, the weapon that he had, he tried to discard it. That's another, felony offense as well. But you think about Al Sharpton and how he's owed so many years of back taxes and what have you. It just goes to show there really is a two-tier system of justice when it comes to those at the progressive socialist left, welcome into their camp, and the rest of us.
It's interesting. We joked around about white privilege. Maybe it's really Democrat privilege or leftist privilege.
It is leftist privilege, and again, if Alan West had done something with taxes and what have you, you'd be reading about it and seeing it, ABC, NBC, whomever, and it doesn't have to be millions of dollars. It could just be something as simple as a couple of $100. But we got him on something, so it is really insidious, and I hope that more people wake up to this and realize that this has nothing to do black, white, Hispanic, or whatever. It has everything to do with whether or not you agree with the ideological agenda of the left and whether you don't. And if you don't, then all types of punishment and what have you will come to you. You can be a person such as Senator Joe Biden and Vice President Joe Biden that has no authorization whatsoever to have classified materials. Oh, by the way, in a garage, open storage next to a Corvette. I mean, nothing happens to you. it's okay. But when you have a president that has the ability through the Presidential Records Act to have these classified materials, now we're going to send you to jail for the rest of your life. But again, you can lie on a federal form and nothing happens to you. Not even really a slap on the wrist.
Right. So we all knew this was going to happen. And just
Mhm.
quickly here, Queen's Raider says, I'm former Army, not a Marine, but paste was pretty good.
I like pace too. Army
and
strong.
and to his point, Martha Stewart got time for less.
Yes. Well, and that's where you just wonder. I mean, what did Martha Stewart do to upset the gods, the little g gods of the ideological left? Because that's what they do. They go after the people that are not, as I said, in their camp.
Yeah, you know what though? I think Martha Stewart went before this two-tiered system of justice was really entrenched, right?
Well, maybe so, but you would still think that she was in the glowing limelight of the folks up there. I mean, she was part of that, I guess, New York elitist crowd, but maybe there was something she had done. But because again, the SEC, this is something they could have just wiped under the table. Why would they go after Martha Stewart in this way? And now she's a felon, if I'm correct. And so she has
Yeah.
certain privileges that she has lost. But you can be Hunter Biden with his crack teeth, and you can go out there and lie. But this is not the end. I think it's so important we realize that, because somehow we've got to find out what's his revenue stream, Mary.
Right.
Where did you get the money so that you did owe $1 million to $1.4 million in back taxes to the IRS? And furthermore, the paternity suit out there in Arkansas, they're going to dig a little bit deeper too into his revenue streams.
It's interesting that you brought that up. You've got, James Comer,
Hmm.
who's trying to get all this information, and the IRS will send him stuff, the DOJ will send him stuff, but it's all heavily redacted. And then they have to go through the process of trying to get it redacted. And then he and Jamie Raskin are allowed in a skiff to view the records, and Chuck Grassley. And then we find out from
Hmm.
Grassley that, hey, when they finally gave it to Congress, because it's not even a confidential, it's not a
Yeah,
classified document,
yeah.
give it to Congress, they redacted a whole bunch of information from it that was not anything classified. It wasn't sources or methods or anything else. So there's like this game that they're doing, a dance that they're playing to drag this out as long as they possibly can. And what's interesting to me to me it's a two-part thing, because they're kind of throwing Biden under the bus. I mean, do any of us really think that Biden's going to be the nominee?
Well, you do get that sensing, don't you, that somehow, some way they are exposing him, even though they're still trying to protect him, but they
Right.
are exposing him to a lot of criticisms, to the point where they may say at some point in time, hey, Joe, we really appreciate you helping us beat Orange Man bad in 2020, but we don't think you can go the distance. It's kind of like in baseball, where you have that pitcher that's been, out there doing pretty good, but about inning 4 or 5, you got to come out there and say, you look tired, we got to pull you and bring somebody else in.
So I always thought though, and I always said that if Hunter Biden went down on any of these charges, as he should, especially the gun charge, his father gets up there and talks about, we have to, get rid of guns, we have to,
Yeah.
save lives, and then his son lives on a federal forum and nothing happens to him. So we're not going to enforce the gun laws on the books, but he wants more gun laws.
Yeah.
But I always said that if they took Hunter down on that, and he wound up doing time, and he was treated like anybody else, that was the signal that they were ready to get rid of Joe. Like
Mhm.
that was the first domino that was going to fall, that Joe's got to go. And that domino didn't fall, which is
Well,
very interesting to me.
Well, the domino, we may be looking at it a way that they see it a little bit differently, because the fact that this did come out, and the fact that you have such outrage about this, because you think about it, it was just a couple of weeks ago that the ATF came out with this rule that took effect June the 1st, that says 10 to 20 million Americans are now felons because they have a little piece of plastic accessory on one of their firearms. But yet here you have a guy that lies on a federal form, and he's not made to be a felon. So I think at some point in time, and this is where the Republicans, again, you and I talk about this all the time, they got to find their big boy and big girl pants, and they got to just pound this and pound this. Go on MSNBC, go on CNN, and talk about the absurdity of not charging a fellow who lied on a federal form Why? Just because his dad's the president? Why? Why does he get away with something, but yet the rest of America cannot operate that way? Why do we have IRS agents? Well, we just saw recently over the weekend going out and raiding a gun store in Montana and taking, their confidential information, their background check forms. But yet, this guy that lied on the background check, he gets off scot free. So you have just opened up an incredible Pandora's box. But we have to have the wherewithal and the killer instinct to go out there and make a case and make the point.
This is why I wish you would run for office again.
I ran
We
for
need
my
to.
health this morning. I ran this morning.
That's not what I'm talking about. Or start. We could. You and I can start a consulting firm to teach Republicans how to be fighters. How to like I said, I want to get those bracelets. Those little rubber bracelets that are different colors. And they have letters. I would say, what would Nancy do? Every single day, just look at it on your wrist. What would Nancy do? And then do what Nancy Pelosi would do, because Nancy Pelosi knows how to win. I don't agree with her. I don't like her, but
Mhm.
you know what? She's a fighter.
Yeah.
She's gutsy.
Well, that's what the left is, and what I try to get people to understand: in the minority, they are tenacious. Look at what they're doing in the House, but in the majority, they're tyrannical. And so, for whatever reason, our guys have not understood how to adopt those tactics and those techniques and those procedures. They continue to implement these, self-restraining rules. I call it Marquis de Quisenberry rules. They say, "Oh, we're above this. We're not going to stoop to that level." Well, if you're in a gunfight, you don't go up there and say, "Can we talk about it?" You better get ammoed up and you be ready for a fight, and that's exactly what they have to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I apologize for my camera shaking all over the place. One of my cats, Oliver, is keeps sitting on the stand, and
It's
he
all
just took a
good.
bath, so it was like going like this. I thought
It's all good. I'm getting
it's
a
like
little
an
vertigo.
earthquake.
Like what is it,
Sorry.
Alfred Hitchcock's movie? I'm getting a little vertigo, but I'm good.
Sorry about that. Um, so yeah, so that's going on with Hunter Biden, and it's going to be interesting because at this point, here's what I think: like the IRS, to your point about raiding that gun store in Montana, in Great Falls, Montana, they didn't take apparently any financial records. They just took who bought the gun records.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's okay. He's fine now. Yeah, they took the gun records. But they didn't take, like they said, they took no financial records. What is the IRS doing like that, right? Like, why is the IRS involved in that? But we know that they want to hire
Mhm.
what 80,000 IRS agents, and they have to be able to, or have to be comfortable carrying a gun.
Absolutely. Now we know why they have to have 87,000 armed IRS agents, because they're going to go, and this is way outside their jurisdiction. So again, who has the oversight of the IRS and the United States House of Representatives, and say, okay, look, serious business. We're cutting off your funding now. We're going to have a vote. We're going to cut your funding right now. If you continue to do this, because from what I read, they also did the exact same thing in Virginia. So this is starting to create a pattern. And if you're going out there and you're seizing people's confidential information, their 4473 forms, what are you going to do with that? I mean, are you creating some type of hit list, some type of target list? So now that you can use it for financial purposes. So all of this stuff is coming together in a circle. All of a sudden we're talking about central bank digital currency. So now all of a sudden, I mean, we know the people who have firearms, and we can keep them from going and out and purchasing firearms, because we're going to control the currency. And oh, by the way, we'll keep you from going out and purchasing food and what have you. I mean, this is dystopian, and it's going down a very bad path.
It's a gun registry. That's
It is a
part of it,
gun
I
race.
think.
It is.
Absolute gun registry. And, we also had the IRS agent who went to the woman's home and used a fake name
Mhm.
and to gain access to her house, and said that, because she had been the executor of a will, and said that the decedent had owed money, and then changed stories and said, oh no, well, that's not really why he was there once he was in the house. He said it's because they owed money and on back taxes that the decedent hadn't paid. And she's like, well, I have the paperwork that says that everything's fine. So she called her lawyer, and the lawyer's like, get him out of the house. She calls the cops, and they find out that his car is registered to somebody totally different. He used a fake name. He
Mhm.
is an IRS agent, And he's using all fake pretenses to get into people's homes to tell this woman she owes them money. And the IRS, answered to Jim Jordan and said, no, the account's fine, everything's fine. Okay, so what's going on? Why is this guy? Why do you have an agent who's doing this?
Well, and that's a felony offense. I mean, he's impersonating someone under the auspices, of the IRS, a federal government agency. So he should be, charged and tried for that, and she's, bye bye. Because that's the message you have to send. But you are empowering people to go out and do these very nefarious things. So, Mary, we have to start being concerned in that the rot and the corruption that everyone says, well, it's in the upper echelons, it's in the leadership levels. Well, some of these people that are individual agents need to be held responsible and accountable for what they're doing. Because if I'm the IRS agent and I'm being briefed, because obviously you had to be briefed before you conducted this raid in Montana, and you get your task and purpose and understand why, I'm raising my hand and say, what jurisdiction do we have to do this? Why are we doing this? Because in the military, we say you don't have to follow an order that's unconstitutional, unethical, immoral, or unlawful. So when are these agents and these agencies, ATF, FBI, IRS, you name it, going to start pushing back and saying, I'm not doing this?
Yeah.
Or else they're culpable as well.
Yeah, well, I think they feel like they're never going to be held accountable, so it's okay. No one's ever has anybody been held accountable for anything. They spied on a presidential candidate. They interfered in a presidential election, and no one was ever. The only person ever held accountable was Eric Kleinsmith for changing the FISA application, FISA warrant application, so that they could spy on Carter Page. Right? He's the only one. And what did he receive? Probation for a year, and he didn't lose his law license, and he could still practice. So what happened to him? Nothing.
Nothing. And
Nothing.
that's the frustration that you see out there with the forgotten man and forgotten woman that's walking the streets every single day. They are starting to see this dual system of justice, this hypocrisy, this I call it the Soviet Politburo, because there's a cut line. And if you're above that cut line, nothing happens to you. But if you're below it, Katie barred the door. So look at all the folks from January 6th. That are still up there, their rights being violated. But we can't find a single freaking Antifa person. We can't find a James Revenge person. None of these people. I mean, they're running around out there firebombing churches and vandalizing churches. They're doing all of these things. And the only people that are domestic terrorists are parents. Or you have the Southern Poverty Law Center now saying that parental rights organizations are hate groups. So there's a pot that is starting to boil in the United States of America.
Yeah, it's heading down a scary road. It really, truly is. So, changing gears here just a little bit. Clearly, you have some smart home devices, since you can, when someone is at your front door or your garage door, right?
Yeah. I got folks, my wife and daughter, going in and out.
That's okay. That's fine. But it brings me to a story that I wanted to discuss. There's a guy named Brandon Johnson, and he is a tech guru type guy, very techy. So his home has all these Amazon smart devices in it. Now we have nothing. We don't have a Ring doorbell. We have cameras, but I don't have anything hooked up to Google or Amazon or anything like that. We don't have Alexa or Siri or any of that stuff. My TV, I actually have to push the button because that's not too tedious for me. I don't have to speak into the remote. My refrigerator can't hear me, so that's not, we don't have that. So we disable all that stuff, and we don't even bring it into our house if possible. But this guy, it took him a week. Now he wrote a post on Medium, and he said it all started rather innocuously when he tried to use his Amazon Echo Show. I don't even know what that is. And it can control a variety of connected smart home tools. So these are the people who can walk in and the lights come on as soon as you walk in the door, and it knows what the temperature you want and all that stuff. Right. All that stuff. Right. So he tried to do all that and nothing's working. And he finds out that he's locked out. Now, this happened on May 25th. So he calls Amazon customer service, and a rep tells him that he should have received an email about why he was locked out of his account. Now, he said he got an email, but the email gave him a number to an Amazon executive. And so he thought maybe I'm falling for a scam because an executive at Amazon isn't going to be, taking customer service
Hmm.
questions, right? Smart guy. He's like, maybe this is a scam. I should be careful. He wrote, when I connected with the executive, they asked if I knew why my account had been locked. When I answered I was unsure, their tone turned somewhat accusatory. I was told that the driver who had delivered my package reported receiving racist remarks from my Ring doorbell. The Ring doorbell is yelling racist things at me. So and he continues to write, and he says that most delivery drivers in his area are of the same race as him and his family, and thus the racial slur allegation was, quote, highly unlikely. So he investigates further, and Amazon told him the driver reported the racial slur allegation around 6:05 p.m. on May 24th, the previous day. So he was able to access video footage from around his home at the time of the incident. He found nobody was home at the time of the delivery.
Hmm.
So he determined that his automated doorbell had addressed the delivery driver with an automated message that says, "Excuse me, can I help you?" And the driver was walking away wearing headphones, so he must have misinterpreted the message. So he has to take a video, he's got to share it with Amazon. They still didn't unlock his account. It wasn't until Friday afternoon he received confirmation that they started an investigation. So this is now day 3 that he's locked out of his stuff while they investigate. It was the long Memorial Day weekend. So he said, okay, nothing's going to happen. And he was locked. Let's see. He was locked until Wednesday, May 31st, about a full week after the allegation was reported. An Amazon rep said, in this case, we learned through our investigation that the customer did not act inappropriately, and we're working directly with the customer to resolve their concerns while also looking at ways to prevent a similar situation from happening again. He said he had already thought about alternate ways to control his devices, so it really wasn't super inconvenient because he knew workarounds because he's a tech guy.
Hmm.
Great. He said, but he goes, what if someone didn't have those workarounds? It would have sat around for a week not being able to access things that run items in his home. And he said, but here's the problem. He said, I question why my entire smart home system had to be rendered unusable during their internal investigation. If you bought a toaster, it doesn't matter what you did, how bad of a person you were, how good of a person you are, you still own the toaster at the
Yeah.
end of the day. And if you really did do something that was so horrible and bad, that shouldn't be Amazon or Google or Apple's call to do anything about it. We already have a system set up for that, and that's what you should be going through. And he's totally right. He bought the product. Who
Hmm.
are they to turn it off because of his quote unquote bad behavior? That's scary stuff.
Well, it's beyond scary. I mean, it is the 1984, the big brother of George Orwell. Think about it. I mean, all of a sudden, you're out there, and maybe someone finds out you vote the wrong way. They shut your stuff
Right.
off. Right now, you have to be concerned about these smart, not thermometers, but thermostats in your
Thermostats,
home.
right.
Yeah, the smart thermostat. So
That
here,
happened.
yes, they can control, the temperature inside your house. Here I am in Texas, and I like to keep the house at 72. Well, someone decides if I have a smart thermostat, we want you to be at 76 or 77 because we're making the decisions about how hot or how cold you should be in your house. This is the insidious nature of where we are in the country right now. They're deciding what type of stove you can have. They're deciding what type of dishwasher you can have. Even though you go out and you purchase these things, you're still being told you don't own them. Or even here in the state of Texas, where we tax people on their property. So at some point in time, I pay off my house. If I don't pay my property taxes, the state can still come in and take away my house. So you never really own your home here in the state of Texas. And we still don't have any property tax solution or relief or getting rid of this antiquated system, which is really, an undermining of, life, liberty, property. John Locke, Second Treatise of Government, 1689, inalienable rights, natural rights theory. This is how crazy it's getting. So, there's so many people. That's why you hear folks saying, I'm off the grid. I don't want any of this smart stuff. I don't want internet or anything because government is finding ways to come in and intrude and affect your way of life and your lifestyle. And this is totally wrong.
100%.
Mhm.
How much may I ask how much you pay in property taxes, ballpark figure in Texas?
It's in the high four figures.
Okay. We
I'm
pay
pretty
over,
fortunate.
I'm in New Jersey and we pay over $20,000
Yeah, but
in property taxes.
you're right there on the ocean, man.
I pay for a view, which I can only see from the third floor of my house over the house across the street next to a parking lot. There's like this much of a view. I have to
You're
pay
right.
for the view.
Yeah, you're on the ocean.
I'm
But
taxed for everything.
yeah, and it shouldn't be that case. Look, I believe that at the state level, we can go back to, what we had before we created the IRS and the personal income tax. You did taxation based upon your consumption. I think that that is a very, easy and fair way to do it at the state level. I don't know if we could ever get to that at the federal government level, but at the federal government level, we should just have four categories of taxation. But when you're taxing people on their property, when you are going in and you're controlling devices that people have bought in their homes, either the government or a private sector company that says, well, we don't like Mary, we don't like that tweet you put out, so we're going to shut down some of your systems in your house because that's how we're going to punish you.
Right.
That's completely wrong. We're going to shut down your refrigerator. Who cares if your food spoils? That's the lesson that we're going to teach you about putting out those nasty, mean tweets that affect your social
Yep.
credit score.
That's right. That's the Chinese, the social credit score,
Yeah.
100%. Over on Getter, Scott says, so he used it the wrong way allegedly. So then it was Amazon's equipment, evidently. Well, that's not true. He bought the equipment and using it the wrong way. So does that mean, back to the toaster analogy, if I buy a toaster and I throw it in a bathtub to try to electrocute somebody, I'm not using it the right way. Does the company get to come and take the toaster back? No, I mean, yes, you're going to jail, but you're going to go to jail for your action. They can't, they can't turn it off. They can't take it away from you. He bought
Yeah.
it. Um,
Or
evident.
How about this? What if you use in your toaster and they're telling you you can only use multi-grain bread? If you use white
There you
bread, which
go.
we think is unhealthy, we're going to come in and shut down your toaster. We're going to take it away from you. That's the path that we're on that I think people
Yep.
need to realize under the guise of we know what's best for you.
Right. Well, you know what? Okay, let's go down. Let's go further down the rabbit hole, shall we?
Yes.
So, my theory here's the thing. What do you see in countries that go down this path? We've seen it happen how many times before, right? They get rid of God. So all good things come from the government. Because
Hmm.
when you don't have a God, I think it's a need for humans to assume that there's some higher power. I think most humans throughout history have had a higher power, whether it was the sun god, whether it was a snake god, whatever it happened to be, you had gods, sometimes many gods, to explain why things happened in your world, right? When you get rid of those gods, when you get rid of religion, and you tear it down, you tear down the traditions that surround that weakens the family structure. So you become dependent, you look to the government to
Yeah.
handle your problems. I'm homeless. Well, it's the government's responsibility on a state level to find me housing. I'm hungry. It's the federal government's responsibility to give me food. I'm hurt and I don't have any insurance. I can't pay for my own health care. Well, it's the government's responsibility to solve all your
Hmm.
problems for you at the expense of other people. But it's still the government's responsibility because it's all for the
Hmm.
collective good, right? It's all for the
Yeah.
greater good. That's why we're still letting so many people into this country who are illegal, who are illiterate in their own language,
Hmm.
will never learn how to read, write, and speak English, can't make any money, but they're here for a better life. So the government, via somebody else, will take care of all of this for them, right?
Yeah.
So if you can do that, then you don't the government gets control, so the government can tell you what's best for you. Well, the government knows what's best for me. I don't know what's best for me. I'm not that good. The government knows far better than I do what's
Well,
good for me.
it's that collective mentality and mindset that supersedes your individual rights, and that's what you're looking at. I think it was Karl Marx that said, "From those with the means to those
Right.
without the means." Along those
Right.
lines, and that's the whole redistribution of wealth. and we can't allow that to happen. So yeah, you allow people to come in here, millions of folks, and they get free services. And if you remember back in the Obama administration, they had this little stick figure, and it was the life of Julia. And the life
Yes.
and the life of Julia talked about how government, little g, will take care of her all the way from the time that she's born to the time that she dies, and the government will make all the decisions. And so, when you take away that moral compass that comes with, God with the big G, and you replace it with moral relativism, you don't know what good it is. You don't know what evil is. As a matter of fact, and I think it's Isaiah 5:20 said, "Woe be to those who call good evil, evil good, light for darkness, darkness for light." And that's exactly where we are. We see all of these fundamental standards, mores, principles, and values being undermined and adjusted, all for a collective ideological agenda.
Right.
So now, if you don't affirm your child's desired gender, then you're bad. And the
Right.
government will come and take your child away from you instead of understanding that that's my child. Oh, no, it's not your child, because Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and Karine Jean-Pierre said they're all our children. They don't belong to you. So you don't even have the individual right to raise your own children, which in Proverbs 22:6 it says, train up a child in the way that they should go, and when they grow old, they shall not depart from it. That's referring to parents. Now, according to the left, it's about them. And guess who has always had that mentality? People like Adolf Hitler, Joseph Stalin, Vladimir Lenin, Chairman Mao, Fidel Castro,
Castro. Yeah.
all of these people, the 20th century Marxist, socialist, communist dictators and despots and tyrants have all espoused this, that you cannot do it for yourself. The government will come in and create a utopia for everybody. And that's why Winston Churchill said the socialism is a philosophy of failure. It's the creed of ignorance. And it all centers on the sharing of equal misery, equal sharing of misery. That's what we're going for.
Yeah. Well, yippee.
Oh,
Um, it,
from those according to their abilities, to those according to their
according,
needs.
yes, in my brain, I was like, in my brain, I know I knew that, and I kept trying to think of it and trying to think of it and trying to think of
You
it.
saw the
Thank
smoke
you.
smoke coming out of my ears.
Yes. I'm glad you got it. Scott is insisting over here that they don't own the equipment. They do own the equipment. Scott, it's like if you buy a camera or you buy a TV. Well, you buy a camera and then you use a service in order to process your pictures, or you buy a Ring doorbell and you use their cloud to store the video on. It's your doorbell. They can't come and take it. You're just
Yeah.
paying for the service. So
Well, think
they
about
own it.
okay. So I'm sitting there and I'm looking at Top Gun Maverick, and the people that own the TV or the internet service, they don't want me watching Top Gun Maverick because it's too patriotic. So what do? They shut down my TV. That's wrong.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Thank you for clarifying that. Okay. Let's talk about this Twitter battle that happened over the weekend with the military, with a Sergeant Major Michael Grinston. He is the Army's top enlisted
Yeah.
leader. And apparently they got into it over Pride Month. He like fought this battle on Twitter over the Army celebrating Pride Month. Why is the Army celebrating Pride Month?
Because you have the senior level leadership of the United States military, being an enlisted or commissioned officer leadership, has completely bought into this ideological agenda. And so here you have the top soldier in the United States Army, Command Sergeant Major of the Army, Grinston, spending 48 hours on Twitter arguing with veterans and others, because at the 82nd Airborne Division, I used to be stationed in Fort Bragg. I'm a master parachuter, so I know that unit very well. They're talking about Pride Month, and they're talking about how parents should be going out and getting, LGBTQ, books for their teenagers and things of this nature, and how they so support it. What paratroopers need to be doing is preparing for combat. They need to be training. They don't need to be told about, agendas. And the pride that you have in when I was in the 82nd or stationed at Fort Bragg was the fact that I wore a maroon beret. Or, you had guys that wear a green beret. That's where we took the pride. The pride was on the fact that on our chest it said U.S. Army, not about my individual sexual behaviors or things of this nature. So when we have the head of Space Force, the Lieutenant General, I forget her name, but she's out there talking about how we need to support pride and we need to support people with gender dysphoria because that helps and that builds up our military and makes us stronger. No, it doesn't. Why are you supporting people with a mental condition to be in the military? You can't stay in the military if you're overweight. You can't come into the military if you got flat feet. You can't stay in the military if you can't run fast enough. I put soldiers out of the military because they had too many DUIs. Now all of a sudden we're supposed to be defending this thing called gender dysphoria, where soldiers, sailors, air Marines, or what have these mental conditions, and we expect taxpayers to be paying for surgeries and hormonal therapies or even puberty blockers for dependent children of folks in the military. And so the sergeant major of the Army should not be sitting around on Twitter for 48 hours debating this and arguing this. He should be thinking about what's best for my soldiers, how we should not have soldiers out there going on food stamps. How do we make sure that our soldiers are trained? Because China is not thinking about that. I mean, China's talking about putting a military installation down in Cuba. I don't think they're talking about coming to Cuba so they can have drag queen shows. Okay, so, what are we doing in our military? And so it is very disconcerting that we have the senior military leadership of our military not focused on fighting, deploying, and winning. That's the key tenets that they should be understanding.
Very well said. I'm a big fan of, I truly don't care what you do on your own time. Doesn't matter to me. But when you're on my dime, when I'm paying for you, politician, soldier, whatever it happens to be, just do your job.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you can do the job, as long as you meet the physical requirements, and as long as you can do the job, I don't care what color you are. I don't care what gender you are. I don't care what kind of underwear you like to wear in your off hours. I don't care who's in your bed with you. Doesn't matter to me at all. When the house is on fire, I just want a firefighter to get me the hell out of it. That's it. I don't care about any of the other stuff.
Yeah, but that's not what the left wants. The left has always seen the military as the last great bastion of principles and values that they had to undermine. And that's what they have sought to do since the Obama administration. And again, I'm not sitting here and saying that there aren't females out there that probably could, kick my ass. I'd give up a hell of a fight, even though I'm 62. But, until we have downhill skiing that's co-ed, we don't. We have male and female downhill skiing. We have male and female basketball, male and female hockey, all of these things. But now all of a sudden, we're starting to implement this ideological agenda for the sake of equity that says that everyone's the same, and we're going to try to have equality of outcomes. The only equality of outcome that you need in the United States military is, can you put a bullet in the bad guy? That's it. Yeah. That's the only outcome that matters to you, Joe and Jane, United States of America citizen.
Yeah, no, 100% right. Speaking of China, House Homeland Security Committee Chair Mark Green at a press conference where they were talking about impeaching Mayorkas, which they're never going to do. And if by the time they do it, it doesn't matter anymore, right? We have so many people in this country illegally. They're never going back. They did what they wanted to do. They got it done, flooded the country with illegals. We don't know who's here. But he says that there are, quote, Chinese nationals, many of whom are military-aged men with ties to the Chinese Communist Party, who have crossed the southern border and been released into the United States. Quote, we have no idea who these people are, and it's very likely, using Russia's template of sending military personnel into Ukraine, that China is doing the same in the United States. Having these people come into this country, because I was always of the belief that no one gets out of China unless the government wants them to get out of China, right? Like, you can't just say, hey, we're going to Disney World. I'm going to Disney. No. See ya. They don't let you do that, right? You have to tell them where you're going, and they keep in touch with you, and that's why they have their Chinese police stations around this country. They know who these people are, and they know why they're letting military-aged men out of their country. Really weird, right?
Yeah, why would they be allowing military-aged men out of their country when they are preparing for, future operations? All you have to do is read the One Belt, One Road strategy of China.
Right.
They're looking for global hegemonic dominance. But the other thing that's so important, Mary, is that these foreign nationals, the price for them to get the approval of the cartels to get into the United States of America and get smuggled in, it goes up exponentially higher. So you're talking about anywhere from $15,000 to $30,000. So where are these people getting $15,000 to $30,000 to pay the transnational narco criminal terrorists that we know as the cartels to get into the United States of America? And furthermore, why are we allowing, if you go down through the Darien Gap, before you get into the Darien Gap, the United States of America knows about these camps. Mayorkas has been down to these camps where people are showing up, and basically they get a roadmap and everything. They get briefed on how to go through, through Panama to Costa Rica, all the way on up. So this is a very well planned and deliberate operation that is being used to infiltrate the United States of America. It's an invasion. And it is not just the Chinese, but it's so many other countries where we see single military age males coming in.
Yeah, it's but we don't know where they are. So every
No.
time I see a train derail, right? I don't know. I see these train derailing all over the place, and you see like these food processing plants that just happen to be exploding, and I'm like, wow, that's really weird, right? And in the back of your brain, you're like, huh, domestic terrorism? Is that what's going on? These people will be in place to wage a war on our soil. That's what's going to happen. You're going to see dams blown up. You're going to see electric grids shut down. You're going to see all sorts of mayhem in this country that we're not going to know what hit us because we don't see it coming and we
Yeah.
let them into this country. Maybe
Yeah,
I'm
but
wrong.
but our military is going to be well prepared because they know their proper pronouns. They're going to have drag queen recruiters, and they know that they shouldn't address each other, sir or ma'am. And then, of course, we have the Biden administration wanting to disarm legal law-abiding citizens. So this is a complete aiding and abetting of what could potentially be a very bad scenario for the United States of America. So it's going to fall upon the hands of very good, law-abiding, legal citizens and local sheriffs. Sheriffs are constitutional officers, and we've got to make sure that we have those constitutional officers in place and not allow the left to do exactly what they're talking about doing, which is defunding the police and things of this nature, leaving us completely naked. And then on top of that, what are they doing? They're releasing all these violent criminals out onto the streets. So you have an incredible confluence of bad actors that are coming together in the United States of
Yeah.
America.
Yeah. And we're allowing them in and we're making them strong with our immigration policies because, as you said, we're making these narco terrorist groups wealthy beyond their wildest
Yes.
imaginations. They can buy all sorts of weapons and everything on the black market and use them against us. And
Yep.
we're enabling all of this.
Yeah.
It's insanity to me. And nobody sees it. I don't understand. I just don't understand how people don't see any of this. So I just got a text, and my husband just came down. We're a great aunt and uncle. Uh,
Ah,
Perry was born 6 pounds 11 ounces early. Wasn't it? We were not expecting Perry's arrival until
congratulations.
after 4th of July. So wow, that's so exciting. So congratulations, and it is my mother-in-law's birthday too.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I sorry, I got a
Big
little
deal.
distracted. My husband
You
just came downstairs and he was
that's
doing
great
this to
news.
me.
That's great news.
Oh, that's wonderful. Oh, fantastic. Okay. So some good news in the midst of all this terrible bad news. So
Yeah.
that's always nice. We have about 10 minutes here. So very quickly, I think you and I disagree on this. So I just want to touch on this topic real quickly because I think we disagree. Remote work. I am a huge fan of working remotely. If you can do it and you can get the job done properly, why not? So I worked remotely from my last radio gig for 14 months. We worked from home during COVID. We got some of the station's best ratings for the morning show since 1980, like two,
Hmm.
and we were doing phenomenally. All right, did great. And then they decided they want everybody back in studio. Now, so I was like, well, I'm not going back in studio. And they knew I wasn't going to. So they knew it was a way to cut a salary without having to fire the only woman on staff, in my humble opinion. So they want, that's a bad optic for them. So they knew if they played hardball with the you have to come back in studio, that I'd be like, yeah, I'm not doing that. Now, of course, many of the air staff do work remotely several days a week. So it's not a big deal now, right?
Hmm.
But why not let people work remotely if they're doing the job and they're doing it well and the job's getting done? Why not?
Well, we do disagree a little bit here, and that comes from my background, of course, being in the military, because there's something about cohesion, there's something about teamwork, there's something about being able to put eyes on each other, and not just through this virtual means. But I think that's important. Now, does it have to be every single day? Does it have to be? But I think it's important that you come together. It's just the same as I see how in churches, people have extracted themselves from churches and they're watching church online. But it says in the Bible, forsake not the assembly of thyself together. Because there is strength when you come together. And we don't want to see people that are out there just floating along on an island. And I think that that's one of the things that has hurt us in the military when we look at a lot of our veterans, in that they're out there operating alone and they don't have support mechanisms and systems. And so we have a serious issue with veterans taking their lives, because a lot of people aren't going out to American Legion posts and VFW posts
Right.
and things of this nature. So I think that based upon what your career pursuit is, what your job is, maybe there is a level of remote work that is, more understandable. But at some point in time, you should have to come together as a team to build that type of cohesion, and because trust is so important when you have your folks, your co-workers and things of
Right.
that nature. And I think that you undermine that trust and confidence when you create that virtual barrier, because it's just not the same. So yes, you can do remote work, but I think for folks to say, hey, look, you got a responsibility. I need to see you as a boss. I need you to see me as your boss. I don't think it's anything wrong with that.
So I don't have a problem with like saying, X number of days a month, and where everyone's going to come in on a certain day. Like you have to have a certain day, because if you say to people like, okay, you have to be in the office 2 days a week,
Oh,
and you
it's
let people,
crazy. It's
right, you let
crazy.
people choose the 2 days,
Yeah.
then is some of the teams in on Tuesday and the other part of the team's in on Wednesday. Nobody's
Yeah.
in on Friday, right?
Yeah.
Like, so if you make Monday and Friday the 2 days that no one's going to come in, which is great because then you can get a long weekend if you get your job done. You don't have to spend time in traffic going home, that kind of thing. That's great. And then say, okay, everybody's coming in Tuesday and Wednesday next week, and then maybe nothing the following week. But some kind of something like that,
Well, you got to have
I could.
predictability. You got to have predictability. And that's one of the things that we love. And that's one of the things that I think that leadership has to try to provide, is some type of predictable work environment. And people have to understand what the standards are, what you require of them. And again, I just think it's hard to do that when you have this virtual chasm that has been set up and established. So, I think, you come Tuesday through Thursday in office, and then Monday through Friday. If you've met the standards and everything is squared away, I got no problems with that. But in the military, we got to be ready to go 24/7,
Right.
365. Yeah.
Right. Well, the military is different. It's like my husband's a physician. He can't work from home like ever. Even
Yeah.
during COVID, he was in the hospital, 13, 14, 15-hour days because he works in an
Hmm.
ICU and he's a lung doctor. So it was his Olympics.
Hmm.
So that I understand. But I got to tell you, I have seen the mountaintop and I kind of like it.
In other words, you're spoiled.
I am spoiled. I love it. I work today in Denver from New Jersey. I'm here with you, and you're in Texas. I'm in New Jersey. It's great. Tomorrow I'm working in Philadelphia from New Jersey. Then I'm back to Denver on Thursday and Friday from New Jersey. It's
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah. But
It's
see,
fantastic.
if you and I are sitting and we're working on a project together, I think it's so important that you and I have some time together, that we can sit down for person to person collaboration.
Yeah.
It's so important that you can understand my thoughts and perspectives. I can understand you. And lots of times you can only do it when you got eyes on a target, as we say in the military. So remote is fine, but it's nothing like person-to-person contact. And I think that's so important for humans. We need to be able to interact with each other.
Some humans, others not so much.
Well,
See,
even those progressive socialists, they need some interaction. Now, maybe a different type of interaction, maybe an intervention.
there you go. See, the
Yeah.
difference is you're a nice person, and I'm generally just not a fan of people. So,
Well, there's some folks that say the old colonel ain't nice. So,
well, see, because I don't know you in that capacity. I just
see,
know you in like a nice capacity. I've never worked for you or had you be my commander or anything along those lines. And this is why when I took that personality, you took that, did you take that personality test to find out whether you're an introvert
yeah,
when you're in school?
I'm
Right.
an
And then it tells you,
ISTJ.
yeah.
ISTJ.
So what did it tell you? What was your ideal career?
Uh, that I do work with others, but I prefer to be alone. That's the introvert. I forget what the ST and J stand for. Maybe it's the Myers-Briggs
Right.
personality thing. But no, I work fine with folks, but I'm the type of person I need to have some space away at some time, and that's. For me, that's why I get up early in the morning. I go for a nice run because it's just very peaceful for me to be out there before there's all the hustle and bustle, cars and everything, to just be alone with God and my thoughts and what have you.
So mine came out that I should be a police officer or in the military in some way or
Uh,
something along, right? Like came out like that. And I'm so glad I didn't do it because there's a big part of me that doesn't like doing stupid things just for the sake of doing stupid things. So I could never be in the military because there's a lot of just because in the military, like, why am I doing this? Well, just because I said so. That's why you're doing it. So I would not do well at something. I'm not good at working my way to authority, but when I'm in a position of authority, love it. I'm great in authority. I just don't like getting there.
that's
So like
that's
I
that's
could
a
have been a
woman.
cop.
That's a woman thing.
Is it's like I would love to be a detective, but I never wanted to be a cop. And if
Yeah.
somebody makes me run, I want to be able to beat them when I catch them, and they don't let you do that.
Hmm.
So, because
No,
like
you
I'm
can't.
that person, be like, okay, you know what? You made me run. I'm all sweaty now. I am not happy. This is the stupid, and then I just want to beat them for making me run. But you can't do that. So it's a good thing I never became a cop or went into the military because I would not be happy.
Yeah,
Probably would
you
have
would.
failed at it both.
No, you wouldn't have. You wouldn't have. You know what? I think you would have ended up. Look, you would have waded through it because you have understood they got to break me down. I got to do all these things because they're trying to make me stronger and better. But then when all of a sudden you get into that position of authority, then you be the one saying, "Now I'm going to get you. You're going to run 6 miles because you made me run 3 miles."
Yeah, well, here's the thing. They would have had to redo the uniforms for the women because at the time they were still wearing the men's pants. So that wouldn't have worked out for me. Gregory says, I'm in Central Virginia, but half our team is in San Francisco. It doesn't matter where I'm connecting from to adequately collaborate. That's great.
Well, like
See?
I said, there's
Yeah.
some people that works very well, but you know, I just understand being part of a team. Sometimes that team has to be together, and
Yeah.
so
I see it. I can see it. It depends depending on the circumstances. I totally get it. Well, I'd like to thank everybody so much for joining us. Thanks over to Scott over on Gitter who leaving us lots of comments. Thank you so much. And thank you, sir, for joining. I do
thanks.
appreciate you. I hope you know that I love when you come on and I'm glad you co-hosted with me. And I didn't know if you were going to say yes, but you did such a good job. Thank
Well,
you.
thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
And we will see you next. We'll be here. I'll be back on Tuesday. So tomorrow I'm on PHT in Philadelphia from 6 to 10 a.m. doing the morning show with Nikel and Greg Stocker. And then I'm doing 10 to noon in for Dawn Stenslin on the same station. So 6 a.m. to noon on PHT in Philly. Tuesday and Thursday, I will be in for Mandy Connell on KOA in Denver. 2 to 5 p.m. Eastern time, which is noon to 3 Mountain time. And then Monday, back on the Chris Salcedo Show on Newsmax TV. And then next Tuesday, in for Brian Kilmeade. And then the podcast Tuesday night. Whew. So busy. You doing anything good? You got anything good coming up?
Yeah, I'm going to be with you obviously next Tuesday on Brian Kilmeade, because you do. I do that every Tuesday morning.
No way.
Yep.
Okay, so we'll see you on Tuesday on Brian Kilmeade's radio show. That's awesome. Very quickly, David and Karen McKay say thanks, Colonel West.
My pleasure. Thank you all. God bless.
All right. Thanks so much. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.